I picked up my daughter's boyfriend, Ron, not his name, from his house on Friday night so we could watch a Christmas movie together. My daughter, Molly, not her name, and I had already had dinner at a restaurant after Christmas shopping, but he hadn't. So I offered to make him dinner. Ron wanted to prepare something on his own, so I told him he could use our kitchen. He has done this before, is responsible, and uses our equipment with care. By the way, they are both 17. We get home, and he walks into the kitchen, which was a mess, and that's my fault. I hadn't had time to clean it up after cooking dinner the night before. Ron says he can't work like this and proceeds to clean up the kitchen with my daughter's help. I left the kitchen to do something else. A few minutes later, I walk into the kitchen to make tea and hear my daughter say the mess is due to my procrastination. So I explain that I had been up since 3 a.m. I work the early shift and hadn't had time to clean the kitchen because I had other things to take care of, and I had taken her Christmas shopping after work. She asked if I was done. I went to the living room to watch TV. Minutes later, Ron goes outside with the small compost bucket for kitchen scraps to dump in the large bin provided by the city. He walks back in, complaining about the gunk stuck in the bottom, which did not fall out. It's a mixture of coffee grounds and bacon fat, so it's hard to shake out. He tells me he's going to hose it off outside. As he's leaving, I remember that the outdoor hose is off because it's winter, so I yell, "Come back! The hose won't work. It's turned off." My daughter tells me not to yell, and I tell her to tell him the hose won't work. It's winter. Note, this is the second time in a week that he's expressed disgust at our kitchen scraps bucket, so I'm getting irked about it because I take it as a criticism, whether he means it that way or not. Also, the fact of his parents' kitchen always being clean is something that he and my daughter have made a point of mentioning a few times. Ron returns with the bucket, and Molly washes it out in the sink. When she's done washing it, he comes to the living room holding the bucket, explaining that he's going to put parchment, baking paper, in the bottom to prevent the gunk from sticking to the bottom again. I interrupt him and ask him to please not tell me about it, because I'm not interested. He continues, and I ask him again not to tell me. I don't want to know. He has a puzzled expression on his face and starts again. I tell him to stop talking about it, and if he cannot stop, then he should go home, because I don't want to hear about it. He stops and leaves the living room to join Molly in her room. About 15 minutes later, Ron says goodnight and leaves. Molly has asked me to apologize to Ron, and I'm having a hard time convincing myself I was in the wrong. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You're the jerk. In fact, everybody is a bit of a jerk here, but your daughter and her boyfriend are jerks in such innocuous ways, and you are a jerk in such a petty way. Your daughter didn't need to tell her boyfriend, under your roof, "My mom is a procrastinator, that's why the kitchen is a mess." The boyfriend didn't need to make a big deal about the state of the kitchen or the state of the compost bin. They were rude. To the point of jerk territory, because yes, they're young, but they're also almost adults. They should know better. You, on the other hand, geez, insecure much? Everyone saying you're the jerk is out of line. First of all, can this kid not read a room? This is his girlfriend's mom's house, not his. Cleaning the kitchen is super nice, but acting the way he did was frankly rude. I can't work like this. Also, OP claims they dropped several hints that they didn't want to hear about the messy kitchen, and the one time they did defend themselves, they were blown off. Are you done? OP's daughter is being performative here. If the kitchen is always dirty, why isn't she pitching in to clean? Why is it solely OP's responsibility? Why is the daughter only cleaning when her boyfriend is over? Because she doesn't care, clearly. Also, being a single parent of a teen with a job is hard enough without other people walking into your house and judging you. Everyone saying you're the jerk has no idea what they're talking about. OP is not the jerk. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. It's been a month since I shared the story about my daughter's boyfriend, Ron, and the kitchen incident. A lot has happened since then, and I thought I'd give you an update. After the night Ron left our house, things were tense between Molly and me. She was upset that I had been so harsh with Ron, and I was still feeling irked about the whole compost bucket situation. It didn't help that Ron's parents, who keep their house spotless, had been a topic of conversation more than once. It felt like a silent comparison was being made, and I didn't appreciate it. A week after the incident, Molly approached me again, asking if I would consider apologizing to Ron. I was still on the fence about it, but I could see it was important to her. So, I decided to invite Ron over for dinner, hoping to clear the air. The night he came over, I made his favorite dish, which I had learned from a casual conversation we had months ago. Ron was visibly surprised and touched by the gesture. Dinner went smoothly, and afterward, we all settled in the living room to watch a movie. It was during this time that I took a moment to apologize to Ron for my behavior. He accepted my apology, and it seemed like we were on the path to mending fences. But that's when things took an unexpected turn. A few days later, Molly came to me, worried because Ron hadn't been responding to her messages as quickly as he usually did. She thought he might still be upset with me. I assured her that couldn't be the case since we had cleared things up. Then, one evening, Ron showed up at our house unannounced. He asked to speak with me privately. In the kitchen, he confessed that he had been distant with Molly because he was struggling with his feelings for her. He felt like they were growing apart and didn't know how to handle it. I was taken aback by his honesty and didn't know what to say. The following week, Molly and Ron decided to take a break from their relationship. Molly was heartbroken, and I felt partly responsible, wondering if the tension between Ron and me had contributed to their issues. As if that wasn't enough, Ron came by again, this time to return some of Molly's things. While he was here, he accidentally dropped a photo frame, shattering the glass. While we were cleaning up the mess, he broke down and admitted that he missed Molly terribly. He said the break was a mistake and that he wanted to get back together with her. Molly, who had been upstairs, came down when she heard the commotion. Seeing Ron so upset, she ran to him, and they had a tearful reunion right there in the middle of the broken glass. It was a dramatic moment, and I felt like I was watching a scene from a movie. Just when I thought things were settling down, another surprise came our way. Ron's parents invited me over for coffee. During our conversation, they revealed that they had been having marital problems, and that their clean house was just a facade to hide their issues. They admired the warmth and lived-in feel of our home, and wished they could have the same open and honest relationships with their children. This revelation put a lot of things into perspective for me. I had been feeling judged by Ron and his comments about our kitchen, but it turned out he was dealing with his own family's issues. It made me realize that everyone has their struggles, no matter how perfect their life might seem from the outside. Now, Molly and Ron are back together, and things are going well. They've been spending a lot of time at our house, and Ron has even started helping me in the kitchen without any comments about the compost bucket. It seems like he's become more comfortable with the imperfections of our home. Just last night, we had another surprising moment. Ron was helping me prepare dinner, and he accidentally knocked over a jar of sauce, spilling it all over the floor. Instead of getting upset, we both just laughed it off. It was a small moment, but it felt like a big step forward in our relationship. However, the misunderstanding I mentioned at the beginning happened just this evening. Ron was over, and he brought up the idea of starting a small garden in our backyard. He thought it would be a nice project for him and Molly. I was thrilled at the idea, and started discussing where we could set it up. But Molly misunderstood our excitement and thought we were talking about her and Ron moving in together after they graduated. She stormed off, upset that we were planning her future without her. It took a bit of explaining, but we finally cleared up the misunderstanding. Molly laughed it off, realizing she had jumped to conclusions. We all sat down and talked about the garden project, and now it's something we're all looking forward to working on together. Now for the next story. Hey Reddit, I'm a 15-year-old female, dealing with some family issues, and I need some help. My parents divorced about 9 years ago, and about 5 years ago, my mom and brother, who is 1 year older than me, passed away in an accident. My dad, who is 39 years old, married Sarah when I was 9, about a year before my mom and brother died. Sarah is the jealous type. She doesn't like it when she hears people talking about my mom or brother, and she has removed all traces of them from the house, everywhere except my room. It became worse after my mom and brother died, and then much worse ever since she became pregnant and my little sister was born. She believes it's time for us to move on and focus on the family we have, rather than the one we lost. We fight a lot in the house, but we had a public fight yesterday. We were visiting my grandparents, and I was talking to my aunt, my dad's sister, who really liked my mom, and she was telling me about a nice memory of when my mom was pregnant with my brother. We were talking quietly, so nobody except me, my aunt, and cousin were part of the conversation. But Sarah inserted herself and suggested that it's disrespectful to her to talk about my dad's ex during an event when she is present. I said, "Sarah, keep walking. It's not about you." But she took me to a corner and said, "This is our family policy to present a united front. And she is my dad's wife now with a baby, and we should not mention his previous wife or son." I snapped and said, "You can't erase them, no matter how much you try, and you go frick yourself." It was loud, so everyone heard. She also shouted that I should show her some respect. I showed her a middle finger, said you're pathetic and jealous of people who died years ago, and walked away. Last night, my dad tried to mediate and suggested that we both did wrong and should apologize to each other and move on, and neither of us are willing to do that. My dad says I was wrong to escalate in public and say those things, and she was wrong to push me in public. He believes we should have discussed the matter later as a family. Sarah says she's tired of living in my mom's shadow, and that the family doesn't love her as much as they loved my mom. She also says her daughter lives in the shadow of my brother and doesn't have her own identity. I'm tired of her behavior and will not put up with it anymore. People who were there generally took my side though. I have the support of both grandparents, my aunt, and several cousins who all told me they didn't know she was treating me this way and won't be inviting her to any events again. She has the support of my uncle's new wife, who also believes the family liked my uncle's ex-wife better. So after talking to my dad, I'm wondering if I was a jerk for not controlling my temper, and maybe I could have avoided a public conflict, which now everyone knows about. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I'm 34 years old. My dad died in 2002. I still remember him, and I discuss his memory with my sister all the time. I still use him as a guide for me in my life decisions, and he will always be part of my life, no matter what. Not the idiot. Your stepmother needs to grow up. She wants attention so much that she is willing to desecrate the memory of a dead person. Does your father remember his own son anymore? Or has your stepmother destroyed that memory too? Comment 2. Not the idiot. She, the adult in this situation, by the way, didn't have a problem confronting you and your aunt publicly. Never mind the fact that this woman is trying to prevent someone from talking about or reminiscing about good memories of their mother. And shame on your dad for mediating a situation where only one person is wrong. He could put a stop to this nonsense, but he's being a coward. Now, for the update. Hey Reddit, it's been a wild 3 days since my last post about the blow-up with my stepmom Sarah at my grandparents' place. I've got some updates for you, and let me tell you, things have been intense. The morning after the fight, the house was like a silent movie. Dad was trying to keep the peace, but you could cut the tension with a knife. Sarah avoided me like I was invisible, which was fine by me. I spent most of the day in my room, looking at old photos of my mom and brother. It's the only place I feel they're still with me, you know? That afternoon, my cousin, who witnessed the whole drama, texted me. She said she couldn't believe how Sarah acted and that she was on my side. It felt good to have someone in my corner, especially since Sarah had been trying to erase my mom and brother from our lives for so long. The next day, things took an unexpected turn. Dad sat us both down for a talk. He admitted he'd been avoiding dealing with the tension between Sarah and me because it was easier to pretend everything was okay. He said he missed my mom and brother too, but he was scared of upsetting Sarah, especially with the new baby. Sarah, for the first time, actually listened. She told us about her childhood, how her parents always compared her to her perfect sister. She said she felt like she was always second best, and that's why she reacted so badly to any mention of my mom. It was the first time she'd ever opened up like that, and I could see it wasn't easy for her. I didn't want to, but I felt a little sorry for her. I told her about how hard it's been for me, and for Ollie, losing my mom and brother, and feeling like she wanted to erase them. I explained that they'll always be a part of me, and I need to be able to remember them. We were both crying by the end of it. Dad suggested we start fresh, try to understand each other better. Sarah apologized for trying to wipe out my memories, and I apologized for the things I said at the party. It wasn't easy, but it felt like a step in the right direction. The next day, I went to my grandparents' house to apologize for the scene I caused. They were super understanding and told me they knew how tough it's been for me. My aunt hugged me and said she was proud of how I stood up for my mom and brother. When I got back home, Sarah had done something unexpected. She'd put a picture of my mom and brother in the living room. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to me. She said she realized they were part of our family too, and it was time she accepted that. We decided to have a family dinner that night, just the four of us. It was awkward at first, but as the evening went on, we started to relax. My little sister was giggling and babbling, completely unaware of the drama around her. It was nice to see Sarah smile at her without that shadow of jealousy in her eyes. Dad even shared a story about my brother that had us all laughing. It felt like, for the first time in a long time, we were actually a family. Not a perfect one, but a real one, with all our messy feelings and complicated histories. Now, for the next story. I, 28 years old female, find myself in a really tough spot and need some honest opinions on what I should do. My sister, 25 years old female, is getting married soon, and the entire family is ecstatic, but I am not. Her fiancé, 30 years old male, stole a business idea from me a few years back, and I'm seriously considering skipping the wedding because of it. Backstory: I had been working on a unique business concept for a few years, and I told my sister about it. I thought we were close. Fast forward a bit, and lo and behold, her fiancé launches the same business, basically stealing my idea and profiting off it. This scheme is what is funding most of their wedding, for your information. I confronted them about it, and they played dumb, acting like it was just a coincidence, and they had no idea. I was furious, hurt, and betrayed, but for the sake of the family, I decided not to press the issue any further. Now the wedding is approaching, and my parents are pressuring me to attend after I mentioned to them that I want to skip it. They argue that family comes first, and I should set aside my grievances for the sake of my sister's big day. On the other hand, I feel like attending would be a slap in the face, as I feel it would signal that what they did is forgivable and that I'm okay with being walked all over. So, am I the idiot? Am I the jerk for wanting to skip my sister's wedding over this? Should I put aside my feelings and be there for her, or is it fair for me to take a stand against what feels like a major betrayal? I'm torn. Edit for information. A few of you really wanted to know what the business idea was. I can't go into detail as it is pretty niche and would be easy to look up and find out a bit too much personal information on my brother-in-law. I can tell you, though, that it was an app idea, and it is identical to the idea I was working on. Also, some people are defending my brother-in-law by saying that I wasn't going to go through with it. I had been taking part-time entrepreneurship classes at a local college and was teaching myself how to build an app at the time. I told my sister about it and showed her what I was working on. He stole the idea before I had the chance to go through with it and sold it to his friends. Now, he co-owns it. I think it's also important to note that I dabble in photography, and from conversations with my parents, it sounds like my sister wants me to photograph her wedding for her, but I have not heard anything about intended payment for photographing her wedding. So by not going, not only would I be causing a bit of drama, I'd also be leaving them without a photographer, according to my mom. I never agreed to photograph. This was apparently assumed by my sister. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. If you are 100% sure that the idea was so unique to you, and he definitely 100% copied from it, not only would I not attend the wedding, I would completely cut off the sister too for sharing your idea with him. That might be a bit extreme for some people, but I have had a similar thing happen to my girlfriend. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Forget that brother-in-law stole a business idea. If they assume you will be their photographer without asking, or even offering payment, then I wouldn't go either. If they haven't organized a photographer, or even bothered to ask if you would do it, tough luck. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, it's been 2 weeks since I last posted about my sister's wedding, and the whole mess with her fiancé stealing my app idea. I've got an update for you all. And let me tell you, it's been a wild ride. So, after I posted here, I decided to have a heart-to-heart with my sister. I thought maybe if I explained how much her fiancé's actions hurt me, she might understand why I was considering skipping the wedding. I reminded her of the nights we spent brainstorming for my app, how excited I was to share every little progress with her. But when I brought it up, she got defensive. She said I was trying to ruin her special day and accused me of being jealous. That stung. I wasn't jealous, I was heartbroken. Then, out of nowhere, my parents called for a family meeting. They said we needed to sort everything out before the wedding. I thought, great, maybe they'll finally see my side. But nope, they sided with my sister, saying I should let bygones be bygones. They even brought up how I used to help my sister with her science projects back in high school, saying I was always the supportive one and shouldn't stop now. I couldn't believe they were comparing my stolen business idea to high school projects. The real kicker came when my sister casually mentioned that she expected me to still photograph the wedding. She said it like it was nothing, like she hadn't just sided with the guy who ripped off my dream. and she still hadn't mentioned paying me. I was floored. I told her I never agreed to be her photographer, and she just shrugged and said, "But you're my sister, and that's what family does." I was close to losing it, but I kept my cool. I told her I needed time to think about everything. That's when my parents chimed in, saying I was overreacting and bringing up how I always had a flair for the dramatic, even when we were kids and I'd put on plays in the backyard. A few days later, I ran into one of my sister's bridesmaids at the grocery store. She's an old friend from our high school days, and she asked if I was excited about the wedding. I just gave her a weak smile and said I wasn't sure if I was going. She looked surprised and said she thought I'd be over the moon to see my sister get married. I didn't get into it with her. It wasn't her business. But then, the bridesmaid mentioned something that made my blood boil. She said the fiancé had been bragging about how he'd taken my idea and made it better. He said I was too slow and indecisive to ever make it a reality. I was livid. It was one thing to steal my idea, but to brag about it and put me down? That was a whole new level of betrayal. I went home and cried. I felt so alone. My family was supposed to have my back, but they were all acting like I was the problem. I remembered how my sister used to come to me for advice on everything, from boys to college applications. I was always there for her, and now she was dismissing my feelings like they were nothing. The next day, I got a text from my sister. She said she was sorry for how things had turned out and that she missed me. She didn't apologize for her fiancé's actions, though, just for the fallout. I didn't know what to make of it. Was she genuinely sorry, or was she just worried about not having a photographer? I haven't decided yet if I'm going to the wedding. I'm still hurt, and I don't know if I can stand there and watch them get married, knowing what I know. It feels like if I go, I'm saying it's okay to treat me like this. But if I don't, I'm the one tearing the family apart. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.